Hi, yeah, I'm from the United States, I guess.
What's your ethnicity?
Why?
Because I ask everybody that.
I'm black.
Okay. Do you know what country?
Do I know what country?
Yeah.
Well, I'm black American, so no, unfortunately, I don't.
Okay. Well, some people identify with a certain country, so that's like.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay. So, what's your religion?
I'm Catholic.
Okay. So, what would you like to say about Israel Palestine?
Yeah, well, I guess
Because
I'm
basically, I ask people's ethnicity, and that's a race, not an ethnicity. But go ahead, continue. So, what would you like to go ahead, continue about Israel Palestine?
yeah, so yeah, I just personally, I feel like what I've seen, like I used to be very pro-Palestine, but I mean pro-Israel, sorry. But what
Okay.
I've seen has definitely changed my
Initial
perception.
question: why were you pro-Israel? Like, was there a reason? Because you are not really connect. Well, you're not connected to the conflict at all. You're not Jewish, Israeli, or Palestinian. So, for what reason? Like, for what reason were you pro-Israel?
Well, I was pro-Israel because my grandmother is Jewish, and
Your grandmother on what side?
on my mom's side,
Your grandmother on your mom's side is Jewish. So, are you Jewish?
no, I'm Catholic.
Your grandmother on your mom's side is Jewish,
Correct.
but
Yes.
you're not Jewish.
Right. I converted to Catholicism.
And
Uh,
if your grandmother on your mom's side is Jewish, I believe that makes you Jewish.
oh yeah. Well, I don't identify with that. I'm I identify as black.
Hold on, but are you half white?
Yes.
So you're mixed.
Um, some people might say that. I would say biracial, but yeah.
So you're half Jewish and half black.
Yeah, sure. But my grandmother's from Europe, so
Your grandmother's Jewish.
yes, but she's from Europe.
She's an Ashkenazi Jew, which means she's from Israel, but she made a pit stop in Europe. That's the way it works.
Well, I mean, she was born in Europe.
But her ancestors are from Israel.
Okay.
Her diaspora country is Europe. That's the way it works. Teaching a little bit about your heritage. So your ancestors are from Israel. So your ancestors from Israel and you're Jewish. You just converted to Catholicism. So you're a Jew who converted to Catholicism. Welcome to the tribe. But if you want to be Catholic, that's fine. I mean, I don't play like religious beliefs on people. But anyways, so it'd be great if you went to Israel and visited your homeland. But you know, it's wonderful to have a connection with Israel. I think that that's a beautiful connection to have. It's amazing. If you want to be pro-Palestinian, I mean, listen, I'm pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-peace, pro-truth. It's good to be for both the Israelis and the Palestinians and the Armenians and the Druze and everybody else who's in the land. They all deserve to win and have peace and have
Can
good
I
things
ask a
happen to
question?
them. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is I previously would have said what you said, but I think that for both, like, it would be impossible for both sides to win. And
Why?
also, I think because like the ideologies of both sides they are depending on the other side to not win in order to win.
But that's not, listen, unless you're extreme pro-Pali or extreme pro-Israel, that's not, it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Well, I have
Honestly,
another question then to
listen. In
pose.
Israel, there's there's 2 million Israeli Arabs living in the state of Israel who are mostly Palestinian. You've never been to Israel, I guess. Who live and coexist, and unlike like in Crown Heights, the Jews and the Muslims, we live kind of parallel to one another. We coexist, but we don't really interact. In Israel, surprisingly enough, Jews and Muslims, the Israeli Arabs who are mostly Muslim, they not only coexist, but they don't live parallel to one another. They interact a lot. Like a lot of them are like eating meals together and like like this, you know what I'm saying? Like together, you know? And there's a lot of intermingling, you know? And the thing about it is that people much better know each other in Israel than they do here. You know, like a lot of people here in America have never met a Jew or never met a Muslim. It's different in Israel. You know, I think the thing about it is that if the Palestinians would give up their dream of river to the sea and would accept like living in part of the land and could live peacefully side by side in a two-state solution, there could be a Palestinian state if they would stop trying to take all the land. There could be a Palestinian state. And I'm hopeful that one day, B'ezrat Hashem, inshallah, that will happen, that mindset will change and there can be a two-state solution. That is the major roadblock, because as long as they want all the land and are not willing to share with the Israelis, Jews, you know, Druze, Armenians, everybody else who's in the land, the African Americans who have made them Israel their home since 1960, they made a kibbutz. They call themselves Hebrew Israelites, but they're different from the Hebrew Israelites here in America. They're vegetarians. They made this cool, like, happy birthday song. The point is, all these people made their home, Israel their home. The point is, we're never going to have peace. We're never going to have peace.
Well, I want to push there because, and I want to push there because I feel like, you know, like, just to kind of take an analogy, right? If I took your glasses off your face and I said, I'm going to give you back half of your glasses.
See, this is like the house analogy. This is the house analogy. And the thing about the house analogy and the glasses analogy is it's too simple to explain the conflict or what happened, because that's not what happened, right? The Palestinians never had sovereignty over the land and never had rulership over the land. They had houses there, right? And they had like property there, right? Which the Jews also have houses and property there, right? And the Jews also belong there, right? And yes, some people were forcefully removed from the land. Some people left. Some people sold their land, right? And this has happened all over the world in different countries and different places. And Israel's the only place that people like have never gotten over this shit, right? It's people are still like, you know, 75 years ago, not accepting the fact that there's a state of Israel. And, you know, I think, honestly, people need to move forward at this point and work towards a two-state solution and accept that they need to share the land. I talked to a very smart Israeli Arab that said, you know, like, forget what happened before, you know, like, people left, people were displaced, this, that, like, that's been and gone and over with. At this point, nobody who's here now needs to go anywhere, whether they're Jewish, Palestinian, whatever, and we need to move forward. Like, and I agree with him. Like, we need to move forward from 2024 on, you know, and I think we can if we're all willing to share the land, and we can do that as long as we don't have one side saying river to the sea. And yes, there's some on the Israeli side saying that, but they're the minority. But the majority of the Palestinians are saying river to the sea, and that's a big problem. And Hannah, if you understood that about the conflict, you'd understand the conflict a lot better. And you'd understand
I do understand that about the conflict, but my thing is that, you know, I think that you're getting to a point where I feel like what you're saying is yeah, you know, we did come in and forcibly displace a whole bunch of people, but technically they weren't sovereign.
What forced Israel to do that, right? In 1947, there was a partition plan where they were offered half the land. They refused to take that half and create a state. And then they waged a war where they brought 5 Arab armies and themselves to try to destroy the Jewish people and wipe them off the land and take all the land. In that war, the Jews who formed the IDF were almost like they had no choice. It was like us get annihilated or them get displaced and annihilated.
Wait,
so
but wait, one second.
Hold on, let me finish, Ann. Let me finish. I'm not done yet. So we chose to displace and annihilate them for our survival. Okay. And by the way, in 1967, when we got West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem, we only chose to annex East Jerusalem. We didn't annex the West Bank and Gaza, which we could have. And in 1948, when Egypt and Jordan got West Bank and Gaza, they didn't give it to the Palestinians. They took it, and Jordan annexed West Bank, and Egypt kept Gaza for themselves, even though they didn't annex it. So that's the thing. Like, you have to think about the history here, right? Israel, if they wanted to, they could have just annexed West Bank and Gaza when they got it, and they didn't. Okay? They could have not given the Sinai back to Egypt. They didn't. The only thing they annexed was the Golan Heights in East Jerusalem, right? The land they got in 1948 was, for the most part, besides a little bit extra, land that they were given in the partition plan, right? Yes, people were displaced, but there was literally a war waged on the Jews. And the majority of the people they displaced because they felt like they were doing it for their own safety, because those people waged war against them and tried to destroy them. If people within a land waged a war against you and tried to destroy you and tried to toss you from the land, you wouldn't want them there either. Like, it was a war that went on. In the war, people were displaced. In the war between India and Pakistan, millions of people were displaced. Millions of people shifted around. Millions of people were unalived. Millions of people, not 700,000 and a couple thousand killed, unalived, but millions of people, millions and millions. Because that's what happens in war, when one side tries to annihilate the other. And then people are like, oh, why would Israel fight back? Because they were attacked. Like, what do you want Israel? You expect, just like, why did Israel fight back when they were attacked on October 7th? Because they were attacked. Like, do you want Israel to just lie down and say, keep on attacking us, just unalive us, just destroy us? I would like to respond. What do you want Israel to do? Do you want Israel to just lie down and take it like a dog? Who in the hell would do that?
Right, and I'd like to respond, because there was a couple of things that you said. So I would like to start with the idea that, again, like, kind of getting into the principle of this. I think that you can either take a legal stance and say, hey, unfortunately, this just sucks. It's just war, and they weren't technically like a country yet, or they weren't following the principalities of how to be recognized as a technical state. And so when we came in there,
they couldn't form their own state, Hannah. They chose. Listen, if they never got an opportunity to form their own country, I would feel a lot more sorry for them. But in 1947, they got offered half the land. Since 1967, they've gotten like 8 opportunities to form their own state. Every single time they turned it down. And several of those times, 1948, they waged a war. Since 1967, they waged intifadas, right? They started violence, which included blowing up buses, stabbing people, shooting people.
So I feel like I was interrupted.
When they got offered states, they always waged violence. Listen, do you know, can you imagine
I hear you,
every single
but
time
I feel like I was
you stepped
interrupted.
on a bus, it blew up and killed and unalived scores of people? That's what we got in response for offering them a state, was blown up buses with tons of unalived people. That's what we got in response for offering them a state, or a war waged against us. So with all due respect, I think your pro-Israel stance was a lot smarter than your pro-Palestinian stance, especially since you're halakhically Jewish. I mean, I know you chose to be Catholic, but I just think, like, the pro-Palestinian stance is probably not the smartest take that you've had in your time.
I feel like I would really like to be able to finish, like what I was saying, which is that I feel like you're coming from more of a legal stance. And I think for me,
I'm coming from a logical stance. I'm coming from a historical stance.
Okay, well, okay, and I accept that that's how you categorize that.
I'm not coming from emotion, because I'm going to quote Ben Shapiro as much as I don't like him, but facts don't care about your feelings.
So I would say that, facts, that is a true statement. Facts don't care about feelings. That's true. But I think that morality is an important aspect of this.
It is moral. It's moral to defend yourself when people are trying to destroy you and unalive you.
But let's look a little bit further back than that, right? So most of the Jews that are currently in Israel were not born there.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's not true. That's not factually correct.
True.
That's not true.
Factually correct.
Where do you get the statistic from? That's just not factually correct. That's not true.
So you're telling me that it is not factually correct that most of the Jews that are currently in
That's just not true. That's not true.
That they were born there? You're saying that they were born there.
Ma'am, it's not true that most of the Jews that are in Israel right now weren't born there. It's not true that they're all new immigrants.
So then why is it that it's illegal
to do
a 23andMe test
Okay, hey,
in
hey, hey,
Israel.
let me explain to you why it's, first of all, hey, let me explain to you about DNA tests in Israel, because actually I had an Israeli give me the sources on this. Let me explain to you. First of all, you can do a DNA test with a court order, but the reason why they don't allow DNA tests is, you know how everybody's doing DNA tests in America and finding out that their father's not really their father? Well, there's an interesting law in Jewish, and it's very easy to get that court order, by the way. There's a law in Jewish the religion called the Mamzerim, and basically, if your mother had an adulterous affair and had you with a father outside your father, like by adultery, basically you're what's called a mamzer, and basically you get excommunicated from the Jewish community, and basically for your generation and all your generations to go for eternity, basically they're excommunicated, and also they can't marry a Jew. So basically, they're fucked for eternity. It's like the worst curse that ever could come on upon anybody. It's the most nonsensical law in all of Judaism. I hate it. But basically, to make a long story short, the reason why they have that law is basically they want to make sure that if somebody by some chance finds out that they are the product of this through a DNA test, that they're ready to hear this very, very bad news. So they just don't want people taking like random DNA tests without really thinking heavily. Do they want to put themselves in this predicament when they take this DNA test? Because basically they're going to fuck themselves up, fuck up their family, and fuck up their generations for eternity if they hear this really, really bad news. There's literally stuff written on government websites about this, Israeli articles, and I have the sources on my Twitter, but they're all in Hebrew. But I also there's also a TikTok video I did about this on this account, but it's in Hebrew, the article. So I don't know if you know Hebrew. But the point is, that's the reason why. But there are Israelis that have taken DNA tests. By the way, it doesn't matter if an Israeli takes a DNA test or if you take a DNA test and they're Ashkenazi. They're both going to get the same results. Or if they're Sephardic and they're an Israeli in Israel, or if they're Sephardic and they're America, they're going to get the same results. Like, it doesn't matter because we all come from the same place, right? So it's just a Sephardic has a different diaspora country than an Ashkenazi Jew, right? We all come from Israel originally, so it doesn't matter. Like, we're not
Well, I
hiding
think that it's
anything.
kind of hard
It's
to.
just we're gonna have different like fathers, mothers, like first cousins, second cousins, but it doesn't matter. So it's not that we're hiding where we're from. It's that the Israeli government is trying to protect somebody from finding out their moms are, if that's not already known. So that's the logic behind it. It's not some kind of like conspiracy theory to hide that we're not from Israel. All Jews are from Judea, and that's been proven by genetic studies again and again and again and again. And it's a conspiracy theory that we're Khazarians or from Europe or whatever, or we're Arabs or all these crazy things that people say about us. It's just not true. And you are not from Europe. You are originally from Israel. Your grandmother just made a pit stop in Europe. Just like Palestinians who are born in Brooklyn are not from Brooklyn. They're from the region called Palestine, or Israel, rather, as well. You also say they're from Israel. Their diaspora country is Brooklyn.
Okay, so I would like to say that, that's a lot. And I have to take that back because I've never heard of that.
You've
Um,
never heard of the word diaspora? So
no, no, no,
diaspora
no. I'm
means
saying I've never heard of like the reason why that Israel doesn't really want people to be taking ancestry tests is because they don't want them to discover that they were born out of wedlock or by some underhanded way. I've never heard that, so that's
it's
new
called
for me.
adultery. Look it up. It's called mamzer. It's a Jewish law
Yes.
called mamzerim.
Okay, yes. Okay. Yes, so I will definitely take that back and that's a learning thing for me. I will say though that, kind of getting back to like the reason that I'm pro Palestine is because honestly, I think from a moral standpoint, I think that there even if everything up until October 7th was fair and moral and right, right, which I don't believe it was, but let's just say everything was. There's a
Everything up to October 7th
proportionality
was fair and moral, right? What does that even mean?
that I think that from me, I'm coming from a moral standpoint. So I think
Well,
that just
hold
because
on,
something is legal doesn't
hold
mean
on,
it's right.
what up to October 7th? Like, that who did?
That what I say, if everything that the Jewish people did in Israel up till October 7th was moral and right, and we just talked about October 7th and moving past it, I would say that there is the issue of proportionality. So
Okay,
I think that
here's the thing, right? I don't like when people say this proportionality argument. It doesn't make any sense, right? Israel's trying to like destroy or weaken age groups so that they can't like do any significant damage anymore,
do you
right?
think
Because
it matters how they do that?
let me finish. Let me explain. Let me answer your question. So basically, I don't know if you know this, but since October 7th, H group continues to do T attacks in the West Bank and Israel, right? They're still unaliving Israelis in the West Bank and Israel, and they're also unaliving soldiers in Gaza. So they're still doing T attacks. And they've
Right.
said that they're going to do October 7th again and again and again. And they also said that they made a statement saying that they want to do unaliving boom boom, like blow yourself up attacks. They want to start doing this again like they did during the Intifadas, which they've tried to do since the Intifadas, but because of the checkpoints and walls, they've been stopped. But they want to try to do this even more. And there actually was unaliving blow yourself up thing in Tel Aviv like maybe a month ago, and that's the first one since the Intifadas that got through. And it was very scary for Israel because when Israel thinks about people boarding buses and blowing themselves up and killing unaliving scores of people again, it's a very frightening idea. Think about it, boarding a bus and that happening. So the point is that Israel wants to weaken age groups so that they can't do these kinds of things ever again, right? So by destroying their tunnels, their weapons, their infrastructure, eliminating enough of their fighters, hopefully this will be done, right? So it's not about proportionality, right? It's about weakening age group, weakening Palestinian Islamic Jihad, getting rid of these T groups, right? I don't even know what the word proportionality means in this circumstance, right? You do whatever
So
you
can I
have
answer
to
that?
do to get, let me finish. You do whatever you have to do to get rid of age group, PIJ, these T groups, right? Like, I mean, like that's what you have to do. You have to get rid of the T groups that are doing the T stuff.
So when I say a proportionality, what I mean is that uh not like I think that there is a point in time where civilian casualties get so high that at that point it is no longer moral nor right, even if it is
But
technically
again, in the
legal, which
war
it
in
is
Yemen,
not.
400,000 people got unalived. I mean, in war, there's a lot of people get unalived. In every war, a lot of people get unalived. I mean, that's how
Not
war is.
a lot of civilians, and I think that what we've seen.
Hand. Listen, according to the IDF, 20,000 of those people were age group fighters. If age group is giving out the numbers, which I don't trust age group numbers, but let's take their numbers for an incident. They say 45,000 people have been unalived. If 20,000 of those, and those were last month's number, so it's probably even more now, but let's just take 20,000. If 20,000 of them are age group members, that means we only have 25,000 civilians, which, by the way, I heard a report the other day by Channel 12 News that according to Hamas officials, 80% of the casualties are actually age group members. So I don't know, like we
Where
have
was
all kinds of
that?
numbers on how many of them are age group members. It could be more. It could be 30,000 of them are age group members. 35,000 of them are age group members. The bottom line is the only numbers we have coming out of Gaza on the total casualties are 30 or from the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by age group. And why would you trust a T organization for numbers on anything? Like
Well,
that's
let's
like
not
trusting
even look
ISIS.
at.
It's like trusting ISIS for numbers on something, or trusting the
Well,
Taliban for numbers on something. Why would you trust a T group to give you even like the weather report?
the reason why I think that we have to look at those numbers is because Israel, uh, one, isn't keeping track of civilian
Well,
casualties, and two, has
How
not
can
published
Israel,
any civilian
Han, how can
casualties.
Israel do that? Han, tell me how Israel could even
Well,
do
I
that.
think
Tell
that
me how
being that,
anybody could do that.
I think that, being that Israel is so heavily in Gaza, I think that if they
Han,
cared to do it,
You're asking Israel to do something they can't do. Israel
so
can't
then why refute what the medical staff is
because
saying?
they're a T organization.
So you think that the medical
No
staff.
offense, no offense. I'm losing brain cells in this conversation. You're saying because Israel doesn't have numbers, we should trust a T organization to like. Did you
No,
hear
but
what?
we should trust the medical professionals in
No,
the
they're not
area.
medical professionals giving the numbers.
So
They're
you're
a
saying that
T.
the
Come on,
medical
quiet.
professionals aren't
Listen to
providing
me.
these
They're
numbers?
not a medical professionals. They're a T organization.
So a nurse
giving-
is not a nurse, they're a terrorist, is what you're saying.
Use TikTok friendly language. The
Okay.
T organization is running the government, and the Gaza Health Ministry is run by the T organization. It's a government organization run by the T organization. Like, I don't understand why you don't get that, Han. It's a age group runs the government.
I just feel like that's a convenient fact. And I just
What do you
think
mean,
that
Han? It's not a convenient fact. It is just the fact that, just like, okay, let me explain to you. Afghanistan, right? Taliban runs the government. Taliban runs the health system. Taliban runs, like, they run everything, right? So, like, you can't take away. It's unfortunate that year 2024, you have T organizations running governments. So, like, you can't separate that. Like, I mean, I wish somebody else was running the place, but that's just the reality, right? So it's just the
I think
reality.
if Israel cared to know what the civilian casualties were,
Han,
they would.
Israel can't figure it out because Israel is not the how, like,
So
Israel's
then
not running.
why spend any time or energy? No, why spend any time or energy
I'm gonna have
refuting
to
it?
remove her because she's not listening. You're not listening. Israel, I'm not gonna keep repeating myself. My blood pressure is going up and I can't do that to myself. Listen to me, Han. Israel is not running the government there. They're not the health department or the health ministry. They're not the population people. They're not running, like, they're not the government. What does she want? She wants Israel to, like, Israel, it's not Israel's fault when it rains.